We get maximum energy release from over tree. Now we can go under tree and also do the same thing. The benefit we get, obviously, when we go under tree is we're not building all that ice on the limbs. Now this is not, we can use rotators to do this. We can use micro spinners and sprays. Then we can use impact sprinklers. Any of the types of sprinklers that we use in the orchard or vineyard are going to be very usable to do this process. So I'm not excluding or precluding any type of sprinkler. You just have to be aware that plastic arms are going to be a real problem. If you have plastic drive arms, then you have a problem. Now with a rotator or a spinner, it's not a drive arm, it's just a cone that's being hit, and they don't necessarily freeze up. There's enough motion. They turn plenty fast. See, those things turn, the spinners turn really fast. The rotators turn many revolutions a minute, so you don't have the opportunity to freeze up. Plus there's a steel shaft up through the rotator that will transfer heat as well. Under tree, you have reduced the amount of surface area that you can freeze water on. So now what you want to do is, if you're going to run under tree, it really helps to have a cover crop. If you have grass out there that's 6 or 8 inches high, it gives you a lot of surface for water to lay on the leaves and freeze off of those leaves. So we really like to take advantage of a nice tall cover crop in the spring. So you don't want to go out there and chop that cover down. You want to let it grow up through the fall and winter and be nice and tall coming into spring if you need to use it for frost protection, because it ends up being a nice big area to collect water that can freeze, you know, surface area for water to freeze on. So you can get a nice big tall bunch of icicles out there. Well, that's good. If it's just bare ground, you just start forming a sheet of ice on the bare ground. Plus you also start looking at a little runoff problem after so long. Whereas if you have a cover crop planted in the rows, you're not going to have the water just running off the field. Because as you start freezing ice on ice, any extra water that isn't freezing fast enough is running to the low spots. And that's detrimental to your cause as well. Also, that cover crop will add a little humidity to the air during the daytime, which will raise the dew point a little bit, which also helps in the process of the interaction. So you can see this becomes a pretty sophisticated operation. It takes a lot of extra horsepower. It takes a lot of capital investment on bigger pipe to supply it all. It requires you to have your equipment in tip-top shape, because if it breaks down, you've lost the whole shebang in one night. And there's another added cost if it's electric. Most electrical companies are going to charge what they call a demand charge for the horsepower that you have available at a particular site. Well, if you're just using a pump for irrigation, say it takes 25 horsepower to irrigate your orchard. Okay? If we're going to use it for frost protection, how many horsepower is it going to take? About 4 times as much, isn't it? About 100 horsepower. Now, instead of a 25 horse pump and a 25 horsepower service, we have a 100 horsepower pump sitting there with a 100 horsepower service, and we get charged according to the amount of horsepower. There's a yearly fee charged by a power company just for the privilege of having the ability to run 100 horsepower at that site. And so you're going to, it's called a demand charge in general terms. That's a generic way of talking about it. Different power companies have their structure set up with different words, but in general we call that a demand charge. So you're going to have to pay so many dollars per horsepower just for the privilege of having the pump sit there, whether you use it or not. Because they have to pay for the transformers that are sitting on the pole, they're paying for the pole, any line that they've had to bring into that site. They're amortizing that over a number of years, and that demand charge pays for it. So there's an economic cost to having that extra horsepower.